My name is Danka. I went to Clarion for my undergrad degree, and then when I started out there, I started out in with a speech pathology major. And as I was working my way through college, I wanted to teach in a school for children that had trouble with their speech. So as I was getting through my coursework, I came to find out that they would not allow me to do both as a double major, an education major and a speech pathology major, because I would have had to do a clinical internship at the same time as I was student teaching, and that just wasn't going to work. So I ended up keeping speech pathology as my concentration. And I have found that through my years of teaching, I end up having a lot of the kids that go to see speech teachers for different reasons. So having said that, I am not a certified speech language pathologist. I am a second grade teacher. I have been teaching second grade for 17 years. And before that, I taught kindergarten for 3 years. So I have definitely had my fair share of work with students who struggle with speech and language. I have only had one student so far in my career, personally in my classroom, that has childhood apraxia. I do have a good friend of our family has several children. 3 of her children have apraxia. So I am familiar with it from their side, their end of it, and kind of a personal way, as far as I'm not their teacher, and I never have been, and I never will be. But I think that has helped me in the classroom. So.
Well, I'm Marianne Ryan. I'm a speech and language pathologist. This is actually going to be my 35th year teaching. So I've been in here for a long time, taught in different states, and I've been in Deer Lake since 1993. But, over the course of my years, I have seen a few students with apraxia, and every student is different. Like you say, okay, this one has apraxia. Okay, you expect certain things, but then this one doesn't follow those steps or whatever, So I've had to deal with different students at different levels. Some were coming into kindergarten totally unintelligible, but boy, could they talk. And I just love those kids. They just talk and talk and talk. But then to see their progress as over the years come, that they can improve their speech, they get better as they come along and everything. But then you have the other ones that just need a little bit of help. So I've seen, the gamut from severe to just mild. And I like working with them because it is challenging, but it's very repetitive too. So they're following rules. So as long as you can teach them the rules and this is what's going to happen and you do your best, that it works for them.
Out of those years that she has been working, I have been fortunate enough to work all my 17 years at Deer Lakes with her. She's always been the speech language pathologist at my building. So, and while these last couple of years, this year and the end of last year, of course, were very, very different. Marianne Ryan is very easy to work with. So I appreciate that. She makes it, even though I have a speech background, she makes it really easy for me to implement things in the classroom that she's doing with her specific students that make it easier for everyone. So it's been nice to kind of get to know her at the beginning, but also know her nuances, and she knows mine, and we work well together.
Thank you very much. And it's nice too working with the teachers that understand and are compassionate and understand what the children have to go through. And Shalise works very well with those students too, with all her students. So right now I do have a student with apraxia, and for this student this year, it's just been different just because of the pandemic and the masking and just, the uncertainty of the schedules and everything. It's just been a little bit challenging this year too. But this student works so hard. He just, he tries so hard. He's not afraid to say, anything. He asks questions and everything, but we have been working on whenever he's talking, he does have trouble putting things together in a longer utterance. So as long as we put it in a shorter utterance, if he takes his time, we have visuals that he uses that helps him remember what he has to do. Now that he's getting older, he's remembering to advocate for himself too, that, oh, okay, I have to slow down. If they don't understand what I'm saying, I need to say it again. Or if I don't understand somebody else and I need some help, I need to say something. But like I said, the other students that came in, some of the kindergarten students were just unintelligible. You could not understand what they were saying. And that was challenging because in a school, it's hard sometimes to get that speech schedule to work into the whole week. They need speech probably every day. So some of those students were seeing maybe 15 minutes every day. Some of them were just seeing maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And as they get better, sometimes you don't have to see them every day, but you can just see them every like 2 times a week or something like that. It's the students that I've had that had apraxia that are different. We're following the same procedure that we do in the speech class, but they need a little bit more wait time. They might need choices. They might need multiple attempts, and you have to encourage every production. So even if it's a little bit off, that's okay. You just want to keep encouraging them to do their best. But as for the same, I mean, they're just like any other speech student. They like to talk, take their turns.
So, and kind of piggybacking off of what she said, I do currently have a student right now that has apraxia, and he is similar to other students with apraxia because he needs a little bit of extra help. Wait time is definitely something that I notice with students, all students of speech, but especially with this child in particular, that sometimes he needs a little more time to kind of formulate what he wants to try and say. And then even it'll sometimes come out a little jumbled. I did in the past one time have a concussion and I had to go to speech therapy. And this child in particular reminds me of myself in that situation where sometimes he just can't find that word in his brain. And I'll have to encourage him to kind of describe what he wants to tell me. So if he's trying to ask me if he can go fill up his water bottle at the water fountain and he can't come up with the word water fountain, he might say, I need a drink, or that thing that has water back there. And then I can understand what he means. So, I don't necessarily, as Apraxia says, I will be your voice, but I don't want to be his voice. I want to help him find his own voice. So the wait time is super important for him, and kind of the questioning technique and putting it back on him to tell me what he needs. I know that Mrs. Ryan has been working with him a lot on advocating for himself, and his parents at home have also been doing that as well. And I think once he gets comfortable in his environment, he is awesome at that right now. And I also think that's because he's getting older. He knows he needs to advocate for himself. So oftentimes he's with me for math class. He'll say, I don't understand this, or this is hard. And, that's my clue that I need to go over and give him a little more attention. And most of the time, it just needs broken down a little bit more rather than one big broad problem to complete. So he's a little different from other, I have not had other students with apraxia, but the other family that I know, they are quite different. And like Mrs. Ryan had referred to before, each case is so very different. With them, I find that they omit sounds off of words and they reverse sounds. And so with them, more than the questioning technique, it was almost like just getting to know them and kind of becoming familiar with their speech patterns. And so now, after knowing them for many years, I can understand them without mom intervening and telling me what they said. And so I think patience with these children is so, so important. And just getting to know them, helping them to feel comfortable, and they will find their own voice. Because of the remote and the pandemic, it's been obviously a very, very different year than any years past. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about Mrs. Ryan, that if she's using a strategy or a verbal or visual cue for the kids, she's always sure to share that with me so that I'm able to implement that in the classroom as well, which is only going to serve to benefit them, obviously. Now this year obviously has been very different. I haven't gotten to work as closely with Mrs. Ryan as I have in years past because we haven't been in the classroom as much. But we do collaborate on things like that just to help in all settings. And usually we kind of expect the parents to do so as well, share the same strategies and ideas with them so that if the children are seeing them in all aspects of their lives, then it's only going to improve.
I totally agree. And with the regular education teachers too, just to provide them with the information, just to give them a background of what it is. I mean, they might have heard of Apraxia, but they don't know what it is. So just to give them the information or direct them to a website or, just to come to me and talk to me about it, that helps the regular education teacher too. Some of these students too that have had special education teachers with them too. And even the special education teachers, they need to have the background knowledge about Apraxia. And also for them, I love it whenever they come to me and say, hey, Marianne, we're working on irregular past tense verbs. Can you help us? Because he just seems to really have a hard time with that. Give me a strategy of what I can do to help him so that he's not just doing something just in speech, but he's doing something that's, related to the classroom, related to the special education room, that it's in different environments that he can transfer his skills. But just working with the teachers, like you said, this year with the pandemic, it's just been very difficult. Time is valuable, time is short. But just knowing that, somebody's just an email away, you can talk to them, they just need to answer a question, they can talk, they can come to me, and working with the teachers collaboratively. And even the principal too, like the principal has to understand too, these students, need a little bit more extra support. So just to give them the background information.
Because time is so valuable this year, it's even more important for the teachers to be able to reiterate what's happening in speech because time is so limited. So each year, because I have that family friend, I try and spread awareness. I mean, it's something that I knew about because I was a speech path major at one point in my life. So I'm aware of it and I understand it a little more than the average person, I guess, if you will, even though I didn't have a whole lot of experience with it. So when I came to find out that family friend had children with it, she was just kind of blown away that I even knew what it was. And that kind of shocked me and made me a little bit sad that more people didn't know about it or how many children it affects. So ever since then, I've started each year during May on Apraxia Awareness Day, I try and talk to my class, regardless of if I have someone with it or not. And I always mention that family friend and kind of explain it, just what it is to them. And so last year when I was doing that, I came to be aware of a student that was in first grade coming to second grade, which I teach the following year. And so I invited him and his mom. Now this was virtual, seeing as how it was during the pandemic. So we kind of had a Zoom call and we celebrated the day and just kind of explained to the kids what it was. And I also, each time I'm teaching a new phonics skill, to introduce a new phonics skill in class each week, we often talk about how to form our mouths. If we're trying to make the short A sound, we'll say ah, ah, and I tell them where to put their tongue and how to move their mouths. And so sometimes at the beginning of the year, I'll talk about it with my class because they take that for granted. They don't understand that there are kids who can't make the O or the ah, make their mouth in that way. And it's not their fault. It's just how it is. So I haven't yet had that talk with my class this year, but I have referred to it. So they are aware that we have a friend in our class that has apraxia and sometimes needs a little more wait time or some help with the formation of the words or the sounds.
Just in my classroom, there might be another student with apraxia, and just to talk and say, hey, you know what, we're all different. We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. Sometimes people have trouble getting those muscles and the plan from the brain to the mouth to work sometimes. So sometimes you have to be very understanding, be patient, let them, take their time and answer the question. The other student has to make sure they give them time, and it goes back and forth. You also have to he's also going to give you time too to talk. The internet is a wonderful resource, but also the parents, the parents that are involved are a wonderful resource too. They bring a wealth of knowledge to it. But just different, I mean, speech and language, they have so many different resources. There's like the Say and Do Apraxia, um, there's word flips, there's another Apraxia flip book that we've done with some of the unintelligible kids. But even the apraxiakids.org, that's a wonderful resource. It just has all kinds of information on what you can do, how you can do it, who you can contact. But those are the resources that I've used. And like I said, Mrs. Danka too, she's had experience. She knows about students with apraxia. So even she and I can talk back and forth and maybe bounce things off of each other and say, oh, okay, how about if we do this? Or what about, would this work if we did it this way? You know, just to help, just to talk with everybody.
The parents most often are the best resource because they know their children the best. So if you can develop that, that rapport with the parents right off the bat, that's only going to serve to benefit the child. Mrs. Ryan, my speech language pathologist, is a wonderful resource. If I ever have any questions, she's one of the first people that I would go to, of course. But like she said, collaboration, I think, is really important here. When I realized that I was going to be getting a student with apraxia this year, at the beginning of the year, I went to the internet. I was looking on the ASHA website, which led me to apraxiakids.org. There are so many valuable resources out there on the internet. You just kind of have to dig for it because, like Mrs. Ryan said, there's such a wide range of speech issues with children. So you kind of have to look for what you need specifically for your child. But there are definitely great links on both of those websites.
Sometimes the students that are coming in to kindergarten, their parents might have no idea what apraxia is. I mean, they may have been told their child has trouble talking and, what could be the cause. And so I have to be their voice too, to say, okay, this is what apraxia is. These are some things that they may do. How can we help your child? Let's look into this and see how we can help your child be more intelligible with his speech, and just to give them information for apraxia. And I don't want to overwhelm them, but just to give them a little bit of information, let them digest it, and then come back and ask me questions, and then we can talk a little bit further as we go on.
My best advice to parents of a child with childhood apraxia in the classroom would be to ask questions if there's something that you're unsure of. If you need help with something, it's better to ask. There are no stupid questions. Also, I would say in supporting what the classroom teacher and the speech language pathologist are asking you to do. So if they're asking you to use visual cues, use them at home because they're going to be more effective if the children see them in all settings.
And I would agree with that, just to help the parents, be consistent in all areas and all environments, just to help them. And parents too, sometimes, in school, we think about our schoolwork and we forget about the home. The parents know what's going on. So we have to ask them, hey, what do you want to have help, or what do you want him to have help with, or something. So it comes, we want them to understand that they can come to us too if there are any questions. But just talking with the parents and having open communication, even if it's maybe a note in the speech and language notebook. Hey, he did this today, or, because especially when they're unintelligible and they can't tell you what happened that day, those notes help definitely coming back and forth. The student I'm thinking of probably would be able to tell what was going on, but you might have to, tease it out a little bit and ask some questions to see if he can answer, give the right information. But as for the parents, just open communication with the parents and the school, and like you said, asking questions, definitely. Letting them have as many chances as they need to get their answers out, or giving them choices. And not to be afraid of it. Just ask questions.
Don't be afraid of it. Kids are amazing. And even when you're saying giving them as many chances as they need to get what they're trying to say across. And sometimes you can see frustration. So not just the patience, but the encouragement and, and the celebration when they get across the whole point and you're, yay, you did it, you told me. And just make them feel good about themselves too, because it can be frustrating at times, but it doesn't have to be scary if you have the right supports in place. And I would also say to a parent to remember that you are your child's advocate. So if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. It's not going to hurt to ask.